Right. Okay, hi guys. My name is Lauren. I use she, her pronouns. I am one of the co-recruitment chairs for the University Guide Service.
Hi guys, I am Laura. I am the other co-recruitment chair and I use she, her pronouns and am a third year.
Awesome. So welcome to obviously the University Guide Service information session. This is going to be pretty brief and chill. We're just going to kind of be talking about guides, how to try out, and what the rest of the semester will look like. So what it looks like to be a guide, and then how you can become one. So if you are not looking to become a guide, you're in the wrong place. But also if you have any questions, the way this differs from like a normal information session is that we usually do like a Q&A at the end. But obviously you won't get that chance here. So if you have questions, our contact information will be at the end of this. But first we're going to jump in and talk about just guides generally as an organization. Hold on. There we go.
So you guys obviously know that one of the things we do is give tours, right? But we are actually a student-run volunteer organization. And in addition to doing the admissions tours that you see at most other colleges, we also give historical tours about our campus and about the University of Virginia. So with that, we do work with the admissions office and with other groups at UVA to sort of curate these tours, but we are completely independent. And that basically means that we get to write whatever we want on these tours and talk about whatever we want, right? So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but it gives us a lot of freedom with how we talk about our tours.
All right, so what do you do as a guide? Obviously, you give tours. So as Laura said, we give both historical and admissions tours. Admissions tours are probably what you expect and think of when you think about tours just at any university. Really fun. You get to meet a lot of prospective students and their families and kind of just tell them about your stories at UVA. So the way that this differs from a lot of other tour giving organizations is that you are quite literally just telling stories instead of being like, this is the average SAT score, which is really, really fun. So you get to connect a lot more with your tourists, personally, I think. And then we also give historical tours where you are passing down really, really rich and essential history at UVA. There's a long book of history here that you will get as a Proby packet, but also just like so much information to learn and to like pass on to one another. And really, it's like such an honor in ways and also like a huge job for us to be able to do this. That I think a lot of other organizations like don't have the chance to. So you also get to learn a ton about yourself, about UVA, UVA's history, but also like other people's experiences here, which make it a lot easier, I think, to just like navigate the university as a student. And we'll kind of talk about that later.
Like Lauren was saying, a part of learning all of these histories about the university involves a lot of, classes and hearing from guest speakers, but also field trips. So on the left, that was a field trip some of our guides took to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And then on the right there is Monticello. We haven't had any field trips since COVID, but we're hoping to resume them in the near future. And it's always a really great opportunity for our guides to sort of get out of the campus and learn more about the histories that we talk about on our tours.
For sure. All right. So what is Proby semester? So your Proby semester, Probies are what we call probationary members, it's just short. But your Proby semester is when you first get into guides, you are considered a Proby and you have Proby class from 7 to 10 p.m. on Thursday nights. It's okay if you think you may have a class conflict or something else. That's something that we can work through, but we ask that you do your best to keep these nights free if you are thinking about joining guides this semester, or any semester, as like this is the time that stays pretty consistent. During this class, you hear a lot from speakers. There's like content that you have to learn, but you do like a lot of tour curation, meeting with other students at the university who will tell you about the organizations, but also a lot of like professionals who work at the university, who work at Monticello, who know a lot about UVA's history, that will come and kind of just like bring the history to life for you. So again, training on admissions and historical information and general tour prep. But you will be doing your Proby semester with, I think this semester, 36 other Probies, or 35, because there's going to be 36 in total. But this is your Proby class, and you guys become really close, considering you're in class from 7 to 10 every night, or not every night, but once a week. On Thursdays, and you just spend a lot of time bonding, which is really fun. And you also have your two Proby chairs who are kind of in charge of you for the whole semester. They are just two people who kind of like set up class, make sure logistics are running, but are also there to just be a friend. Probie semester is, I would say, one of the most fun semesters in guides, and also people like adore you because you're new and you're cute and perfect. So that's only for your first semester though, and then past Probie semester, you just give historical admissions tours like anybody else at guides.
Yeah, so in addition to having your actual Probie class, you're going to have what we refer to as your big guiding group. So this is going to be basically a group of you and two other people in your Probie class, as well as a bunch of older guides. And they're really going to make sure that you're set up for success to give admissions and historical tours after your 3 months or so of Probie training. And we do that through a couple of ways, right? And we take you through this whole process. So one of the first things we do with our Probies is we have them go on tour observation. So this is basically just, you're going to go and you're going to like sit in on somebody's admissions or historical tour, a current guide, and just pick up notes. You might even go to like 2 or 3 of them, and they're always really helpful in creating your own tours. And then you're obviously going to have the chance to practice your tours with the current guides. And a lot of the times that's going to be the people in your big guiding group after Probie class for about an hour. So you'll meet up with them and go through stop by stop, and then also do some like tricky tour questions or like tough questions that you might get asked on an actual tour, and learn how to sort of conquer those questions and also how to approach this material in an actual tour context. So we always say that you're putting your tour guide hat on in those scenarios, right? And then in addition to that, throughout Probie semester, you're going to be actively writing and crafting your own tour and writing different stops and getting feedback and editing. And it's going to be a lot of just trial and error. And even after Probie semester, I go back through my tours constantly to re-edit them. So it's not like what you create in your Probie semester is going to be, you know, what your tour is going to be perpetually. And then we also have tag team tours. So that's going to be where you go with your Probie siblings and you each give 2 or 3, maybe even 1 stop on either an admissions tour or a historical tour to these bigger guides. So again, those are sort of like low stakes opportunities for you to practice public speaking and get comfortable with it. Even if it's something that you are super confident about or with now, or if it's something that you are just like shy about or want a little bit more experience with, we really work with you throughout that entire semester to make sure that you are ready and prepared to have that context and have that public speaking skill once you actually go and give tours to people that aren't just other tour guides.
Lovely. All right. So your obligations after Probie semester change a little bit, obviously. This is when you are giving solo tours. So you're required to do 9 tours in the fall and 11 tours in the spring. Some people give more admissions tours, some people give more historical tours, but you are required to give both. You also have a weekly office hour. You essentially just sit in the guide's office, answer phones, pick up any tours that aren't covered, just kind of as backup. We also have general body meetings. This happens monthly, just kind of times to get together, update people on the state of the guide service, new initiatives that we have, new programs that we have, whatnot. We also have tour improvement programs or tips. You're required to go to, I think, 1 or 2 of these per semester, and they're what they are called. They're just different information on how to make your tours better, how to talk more critically about an issue, how to get tips, as in like actual money at the end of a tour, just like random silly things also, just like anything that somebody finds interesting. Anybody can host these. And then there are also different events that we host with different organizations around grounds too. So for example, like Undocu VA will host Undocu Ally trainings, and that will also count as a tip. We also have dues. These are $30 for all semesters, but they can be 100% subsidized, no questions asked. And that's true for any semester in guides. So if you need that covered in your Probie semester or past Probie semester, just let the treasurer know and it will be covered regardless of like what the situation is. You do not have to explain.
And then another really fun thing we have is the colonnade ball. So this usually happens in the fall, but this year it's going to happen in the spring. So if you get the chance to join this semester's Probie class, you'll get to go to the colonnade ball. And basically, in addition to being an opportunity for us to get all together and dress up and take really nice pictures and dance and have a good time, it's also a fundraising event for the Rayhan Memorial Scholarship. So Rayhan was a student who was actually a guide a few years back, and he still means a lot to the guide service. So it's really awesome that we get to sort of have this celebration in reference of him and also raise this money for a really great cause.
Yeah, past colonnades, we still have fun. Um, so we kind of just hang out. A lot of my closest friends are in guides, were introduced to me by guides. A lot of us end up living together. So um, they're like Zoom calls, people going to wineries. We played Assassins. We take holiday card photos. We go to construction sites. But the people in guides are genuinely some of the best people I know, and some of my closest friends in the entire world. And it's just like a really great community to join. Obviously, like you come here to give tours, but you get a lot more out of it too. Simply like from the community that you are like put in contact with. And we just have a lot of fun together. In so many ways, like all the time during Proby class, during guides things, outside of guide things. So I think if you're looking for community, like guides is for sure a really, really incredible place to find it.
So you may be wondering, why should I join the University Guide Service? So we mentioned earlier, we've kind of alluded to this throughout, but it's really different than how they do it at other universities, right? We don't just give these admissions tours, and these admissions tours also aren't sort of written for us, they're written by us. One really great thing that I love to start all of my admissions tours on is by saying that my job today isn't to make you, to the tourists, sort of fall in love with the university, but it's to make them realize whether or not that's some place that they actually see themselves going, right? And we have such an incredible opportunity to do that. And with that, we're really able to share anything we want about the university. And that includes sort of the good, the bad, the ugly, right? All of those stories. Your job isn't to make them want to come to this university. And then in terms of historical tours, you have just an incredible opportunity there to sort of reveal all of the hidden histories that were really covered or sheltered from everybody perceiving the university for so many years. And we get to sort of shape how people understand and think about UVA and our grounds and our lawn and those sort of physical spaces, and tie in a lot of the histories and give this voice and agency back to the enslaved laborers, especially, and the indigenous communities and all these different communities who really for years, if not centuries, have had that agency stripped from them. And we have the opportunity in what little ways we can, or what big ways we can even, to sort of give that back. I personally joined guides. I always knew I wanted to give tours in college. I think a lot of us had this experience where we did it in high school, we showed people around, and you come to college and you're like, oh yeah, I want to do that. But the more I learned about UGS and the University Guide Service specifically, I was like, oh, historical tours are also a thing. And there's all of these histories that are so incredible. And even if you're not a person who necessarily loves history, you're going to find yourself just being so in awe of everything that you learn. And I think that one incredible thing that has come from my experience in the University Guide Service is that it's changed the way that I walk around grounds, right? So I'll like walk around and see these, what are actually like historical markers that you would never consider if you were just, you know, not reading about these histories or not taking this Proby semester. So it's been a really incredible opportunity for me to meet a bunch of new people, tell these diverse stories, and also share my story, especially on admissions tours where, you know, you usually just hear all these different statistics and numbers and percentages, and that really doesn't mean much to me. So I really love getting the opportunity to share people, you know, why I go to this university despite its flaws.
Yeah, and also that was kind of a serious talk, but also a very silly picture is next to it. This is the angel of the guide service, Daniel Boho, on Halloween. Do with it what you want. Yeah, but as I was saying, like, this is not a perfect university, and also we are not a perfect organization by any means. Our ability to like accurately, whatever that means, represent like the lived experience of people at UVA, to more like articulately tell the stories of like the people who constitute the history of this university, all depend on like the lived experience of people within the organization. And so of course, like the more we diversify those voices, the better shot we have at giving like an accurate picture of this university. And so like your voice and input will make us better. We want people to challenge this organization. We want people to challenge this university. And we want this to be a better place for all of us. So if you have questions about what it looks like to be like within the university guide service, or like what guides is doing to change, and to like be more accountable to like the jobs that we have, and also like the responsibility we have to one another just as students. That is something, those are questions that Laura and I can also answer. But feel free to like email us, text us, whatever, if you have questions about that.
So if we did our job right, you want to sign up to try out and give a trial tour. And basically the signups for that are going to occur January 30th through February 4th, and we'll send further information about that. I really suggest following us on Facebook and on Instagram. We're going to have a lot of information on there, as well as our website. But basically what you're going to need to do in sort of the next steps, and that is to create your own historical tour. So it's going to be basically a condensed version. It's going to be only 15 minutes, and that includes sort of the walking time. So definitely take that into account. But we're going to give you a bunch of resources, right? So on our website, uvaguides.org, we have a video example. It's on Zoom, so there's not that sort of like walking, but there's still those interactions, and an example of like hand holding and gestures and things like that that would be really helpful for you guys to take a look at. And then we also have a fact sheet, and basically everything you need to create a 15-minute historical tour is going to be on this fact sheet, but you are not sort of prevented from going off and not doing something on this fact sheet or like looking up additional information, but it's not a requirement by any means to do so. We also have just some more general tips, and we'll give you some tips in this video, but our website has a lot more information on that. And then of course, you're just going to practice and then eventually deliver your 15-minute historical tour to 2 UGS like current tour guides who are going to act as your tourists on this trial tour, and they're going to take on a persona, and it's really, those personas are meant to be a sort of fun thing to get you to sort of like loosen up and interact with people as if you would be interacting with tourists. Some of the personas might be kind of silly, but honestly, just take it and run with it. Engage them in that conversation. Make sure you're talking with them between stops and things like that. And then your tour is really only going to be in the lawn area, and 15 minutes is honestly not a lot of time. So just keep that into consideration when you're choosing like where you want to have these different stops. They probably shouldn't be too terribly far apart from each other. And then just show up on time and yeah, give your tour. You'll do great.
Cool. So briefly, I'm going to talk about what you are going to be evaluated on. So obviously there's a rubric that comes with grading for your trial tours. So bigger bubbles on here are things that matter the most. And then small bubbles are things that still matter a lot, but less than the other 3. So first, flow and cohesion. We want to see how you write a tour. We want to see that you can like put information together to tell a story. Because that's what guides is, right? Like telling stories, telling your own, telling the stories of other people. So your ability to do that within 15 minutes, and with less information than trying to create like a whole 1+ hour tour is something that's really important. So kind of how information like comes together essentially. So that will come really easily with a theme, and we're going to talk about themes very briefly and like give you examples in the next slide. But for sure important. Second is your interaction with your trial tourists. This is rapport, right? So how you connect with people, how you like talk to them between stops, how you bring them places, how you consider their comfort levels, things like that. So one way that I like to talk about this is being very obvious with how intentional you are with people, in terms of like where you are placing them physically on the lawn. So for example, it's really sunny outside. And if you are facing the left side of the lawn, your tourist will be staring straight into the sun. So very intentionally, you can be like, hey, why don't you guys stand around here and like gesture to an area so that you don't have to stare into the sun. And then you are the one looking into the sun. If it's raining, keep them like on the covered walkways, things like that. Just think about the ways that you are, like what you would want somebody to interact with you as, if you were a tourist. And that's what you should do with your travel tourists. But yeah, otherwise it's just building rapport with them. Like literally how you talk to people between stops is so important. So just ask people like, oh, what are you doing in town? Why are you here? Do you want a lunch suggestion? Things like that. Super easy. They also want to help you out. They'll fill in the blanks for you. But you definitely have to be the one to like initiate that conversation and kind of like create this rapport with them. Third, mechanics and delivery. Speaking mechanics, as you would expect. Enunciating, projecting, talking at a reasonable speed. It can be really easy to practice your trial tour and talk slowly, and then show up and just blow through it and then realize that you shaved off 5 minutes of your time. So practice a lot, but essentially like how you use your hands when you're speaking. Do you have good body language? Are you open to your tourists? Are you speaking in a way that's cohesive and coherent, etc.? Um, and then other two things that still matter. One, obviously punctuality. Show up on time. It's so easy. You'll get points for showing up on time. You won't get points for not showing up on time. But if you want full points, like it's simply the easiest way to get them. And then secondly, accuracy. You may be like, why doesn't accuracy matter? That's nuts. Isn't the whole point for you guys to tell accurate stories? Yes, but also like we are trained tour guides and you guys are not. Not in a demeaning way, but just in the sense that like you don't have all the information that you need yet to create like a completely accurate tour. So do the best that you can to like tell exact stories or the ways that you find them, like with your own interpretation, of course, and analysis and thoughts on like what that means for the university, what that means for you. Um, but what we mean by like accuracy not mattering as much is like if you say like 1965 instead of like 1963. But if you were like the university was founded in 2012, that's like 200 years too late. And you will get deducted for that. But if you like mess up a year, briefly fumble somebody's name, like it's not the end of the world. Just like take the hit, move on. It will be totally fine.
Yeah, so we mentioned a lot of this already, but again, please refer to our website. There's going to be so many incredible resources for you guys to utilize in creating your trial tours on that website. And then also Lauren was alluding to this earlier, but choosing a theme, right? Or some sort of like thread to tie the different pieces of your stops together is going to be really helpful. So for example, I believe my theme when I trial toured was about enslaved labor at UVA and the history of that. Some people choose to do the history of women and coeducation at UVA. Some people have done student self-governance or even like silly things, right? Like the history of like music on the lawn or like architecture, anything you want it to be, but just sort of make it clear that that is your theme. And I think one of my biggest sort of tips with that is like introduce yourself at the very beginning of that tour, right? So you give your name, your pronouns, your year, your major, and then also just sort of give a little bit of an outline. So like today our tour is going to be about this, and then begin your stops. And that's going to make it a lot more clear to the people that are giving your trial tour, sort of what it is that you are giving this tour about and why that's important, right? Have those two things be sort of your main keys. And then again, just choose the stories that speak to you. I mentioned what I gave my tour on, but again, that's not what you're limited to by any means. It's going to be a lot more effective for you to talk about something that you're incredibly passionate about, because that passion is ultimately going to come through and be really helpful for you in giving your trial tour. And then just some like sort of bits and pieces and little minuscule things of advice is practice is sort of one of the biggest things that I honestly forgot to do my first time trying out for guide service. But practicing doesn't just mean sort of like reading off of this paper, but it actively means sort of like putting that paper aside, trying to remember it all in your head, reading it out loud, reading it to your hallmates or to your sister or like somebody on FaceTime, right? And then also walking the lawn. So I really highly recommend that before you actually give your trial tour, get onto the lawn, choose the stops that you're going to give and where you're going to give them and time it, right? You don't want to show up day of having never walked that route before and then you end up realizing that walking from North Lawn to South Lawn somehow takes you like 5 minutes, right? So just calculate that into there. And like Lauren was saying, just make sure you engage with your tourists as much as you can and make sure it's a comfortable experience for them, holding them away from the sun, outside of like puddles, don't get them onto like the hills if they don't need to be there. And then just in terms of sort of holding or positioning your body as you're giving the tour. One of our biggest piece of advice is holding the beans. So what that looks like is like you're literally tangibly holding imaginary beans in your hand. And you're like, yes, this history is so important. And it is. And this is going to make it seem important and make them sort of pay that attention to you, right? And another thing with that is planting your feet. This is one thing that I really struggled with my previous semester, but it's like I have a tendency to like sway, right? So just make sure your feet are sort of flat on the ground and that you're actively making a point to have your feet there, holding the beans and just sort of projecting. I think a lot of it is about demanding that confidence, and probably my biggest piece of advice is just faking it until you make it, right? We don't know what you outlined or like what you prepared for us in your trial tour. So if you mess up, don't let us know, right? Because sometimes you can see it in your face, but don't let us see that reaction on you. Just take it and run with it, right? Even if it's not the content that you prepared, just talk about anything. Or maybe if it's even just like pausing and like taking a minute to recompose yourself. And even that minute can be like an interaction with the tourists that you're giving that tour to, right? You can be like, oh, what do you think about this? Or something like that. Just like a second to compose yourself. Don't feel that need to sort of like hit every bullet that you wrote in that sort of outline to yourself or in whatever ways you prepared. Just take what you have and run with it. And again, fake it till you make it. And we honestly won't know.
Yeah, going off of that, this happened to me twice in my trial tour, and that's why I thought I bombed it. Because at the beginning I was like, I'm gonna come back to that later, and I never came back to it. But they don't know that. Like they forgot that I said that, and also it simply didn't matter that much. Would it have been nice if I had remembered? Maybe they would have gotten some more information. But again, I just pretended like I did nothing wrong, and they never knew. Um, so really, like I guess that ties in. Like slow down, take a deep breath, have fun with it. Like it's not that deep. It's 15 minutes of your life. It's fun. That's why you should talk about stories that matter to you. I talked about the history or the intersection of history of woman and the architecture of the lawn. And I thought the information was so interesting, which is why I like had fun with my trial tour instead of seeing it as this like huge nerve-wracking thing. Um, so I guess my biggest piece of advice would be don't chicken out. It's going to be so easy, right? You're going to sign up for a trial tour now. The night before, you're going to be like, I'm not ready. And you're going to text one of us and you're going to cancel. No, you're not going to do that. Do it anyways. It's such good practice. And like, you can look back at it later and still be proud of yourself. I think one of the best pieces of advice I've gotten and have been able to give for trial tours is like, celebrate yourself after, regardless of what happens. It's scary to talk in front of two strangers for 15 minutes, and not something that you do a lot. And so like the fact that you wrote a tour, showed up and gave it is something to celebrate regardless of what happens afterwards. That's like barely the important part. So have fun with it. It's not that deep. Don't chicken out. Last thing, logistically, bring a mask to your trial tour. You will be masked. Your trial tours will be masked. There's COVID. Also, it's cold. During my trial tour, my lips got so numb that I could barely enunciate anything anymore. So perhaps this will actually be good for us this semester. What happens if I get COVID? First, you're going to text or email me or Laura. If you want to reschedule your time, which you should include that in your message. Tell us what time works for you. We can be pretty flexible. Again, trial tours are run from that Sunday to that Friday, from like 10 a.m. to around 5:30 p.m. And Zoom links are a lot easier to do. So just let us know if you would like to reschedule, what time you're thinking about, and we will try to coordinate that with you as soon as possible. We will send you a Zoom link and you'll still do your trial tour as scheduled, obviously without the walking. So we won't expect you to get to 15 minutes. But you can be like, we are going to be standing, like right now, we would hypothetically be walking to South Lawn. Walk to South Lawn. This is a bit tough actually, because you're gonna have to try to portray, like we talked about, building rapport, building connection with your trial tourists. So you're gonna have to try to portray that in different ways. And I think fun ways to do that are like engaging with them, making an interactive tour. I asked my trial tours questions. I was like, what do you guys think this door was for? Or like, what year do you think this happened? Just kind of little things like that, that will like make your tour come to life a little bit, especially because you like don't have that time walking in between spaces. And it's like a lot harder to read body language, whatnot. So that being said, if you can do your trial tour in person, please do it. It's so much easier for the both of us. And also like if you are want to do a Zoom link, it's a little bit of a cop out, so you can read your trial tour from your screen. Don't do that. It's really obvious. We will be able to tell, and it will be simply an automatic no. So if you feel sick, please, 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 please do not come. Even if you don't test positive, regardless of what symptoms you have, use your common sense. Protect us, protect you, protect each other, etc. I don't know if Laura's here anymore, so I'm going to keep going. But we're your biggest fans. We want to help. We want to hype you up. Please email us. Please text us. Seriously. That is our job. Our job is to like answer your questions, reassure you about a theme, things like that. But if you want to reschedule your time, we are also the people to contact. Logistically, we handle all of this. So again, contacts for us for anything. I texted my recruitment co-chairs the night before to confirm my time, which we also send you an email about, by the way, the day before. It's like time, the room you need to show up to, like all these details. But I also texted mine to be like, hey, can you just reassure me that I'm going to do a good job? And my friend Zach sent me like a 2-minute long voice memo telling me that I was perfect. So Laura and I will do the same thing for you. Just ask. But if you want to do that, here is our contact information. Let us know, again, questions, logistical changes, et cetera, et cetera. But email us, text us, whatnot. I personally don't mind a cold call. I don't want to speak for Laura. I am in class, however, but if you were like freaking out and you need to call somebody, that can happen. But please use it only for emergencies and also to your discretion.
Your bold FaceTime. Or you know what I love? I'm like such a big fan of voice memos. And Lauren, I did the same thing as you were like, I texted Pilar right like the day before my trial day. I was like, hey, can't do this. And she did the same thing and she was like so encouraging. And again, like just to reiterate, Lauren and I are here to be that resource for you. So please send me all the voice memos that you deem necessary, even if it's just to like rant or even if it's just to like, you know, spew your thoughts. Just send it our way. We are your biggest fans. We want you to.
And also, we have no say in the grading process. We don't get an opinion on people. Like nobody's asking for us to do anything. We're not going to be your trial tourists. So that hopefully also takes away some of the scariness of like asking a question or reaching out to one of us. Regardless of what happens, like we are not communicating with anybody that is able to grade you. We are just here to like kind of be the bridge between like you and those people. So again, questions, ask us. We have no stakes, and therefore neither do you. Cool.
So these are all of the times of the info sessions that we're going to have. They're all in the Rotunda multipurpose room, except for the ones on Zoom and then the one in the Multicultural Student Center. And as you can see, those are all just written down in front of you. So please come. You're going to get the same information really that you're getting from this slide, but honestly, it's just a great opportunity for you to come like meet some current tour guides and also chat with them about their experiences, meet us potentially in person, and again, just save our contacts if anything else, and good luck. You'll kill it.
Yeah, for sure. Just like, I think the only difference between, again, this and these is that you can ask questions whenever you want to, or at the end. So if this didn't give you the information that you wanted or needed, these are all times that you can show up and like ask those questions in person. And sometimes maybe one of us will make cookies. That's really the only incentive. Okay, that is it from us. Again, if you have questions, email us, text us, call us, FaceTime us, send us a voice memo, send us like a little memoji video. I love those. But yeah, we're here for you. Good luck. You're going to be incredible. It's not that big of a deal. Don't chicken out. That's it from us. All
Bye.
right. Bye.